are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is a well-rested, feeling great Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. You can also listen to him on the Best Coast Boys podcast. Landon, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed the bye week. I just feel so refreshed and re-energized. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm sick. You know that. Yeah, I'm definitely on the I'm on the injury list. But I'm probable to is probable still a status?
No, they got rid of probable, so you're only questionable.
I'm questionable, but I'm probably going to play. So
okay. All right. So because the Cowboys had a bye week, a very relaxed, stress-free bye, we can kind of talk about some of the things that happened this week, and we're going to get into some Cowboy stuff later on the show. But Lane, I want to give you a stat. Actually, it's not even a stat; it's a probability. According to 538, the Cowboys had a 93% chance to make the playoffs going into this week. Most of the time, when you're on your bye week, you lose, points because other teams are out there winning and you're just not playing. It's just what happens. Not the case with the Dallas Cowboys. Their playoff odds actually increased to 95% based on what happened on Sunday, partly because the Eagles lost, Washington lost. But good week for the Cowboys, right?
Yeah, I mean it's frankly pretty difficult to try to improve your standing on a bye week, and apparently the Cowboys did it. Which kudos again to the NFC East for continuing to buoy our chances of making the playoffs. I certainly appreciate it. And all this despite the fact that the number one seed won, and the couple of the folks that were in competition for what the Cowboys are trying to ultimately shoot for, they won their games. But as far as odds of the Cowboys making the playoffs, it just seems to be an unstoppable train towards 100%, thanks to the other members of the NFC East.
So, all right. So, at what point do we hit 99 to 100% probability that the Cowboys make the playoffs? Is it because they are 3.5 games up on the Giants right now, who are technically in second place, I believe? At what point do they wrap up this division?
I mean, I guess my question is it possible for this team to get to 100% before they even play those two Washington games at the end of the season?
I think it is actually. I do, because I think there's a chance the Cowboys could get to 9 or 10 wins before they even play Washington.
Yeah, so I mean, if they can, that would be pretty amazing. Like if they got to those games, they never even played Washington, the entire season, and they would already gotten to 100% chance of winning the NFC East. I mean, that'd be, I don't know, that'd be pretty anticlimactic for Washington football fans. But
so the Cowboys have played 2 divisional games right now, Landon. I'm looking at it now. There is a chance that by the time the Cowboys play their next divisional game, they've already locked out the division.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of think back to those the ultimate NFC East previews and thinking of just the odds of the Cowboys.
We're gloating a little bit here, but that's okay. We deserve this after last year, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know that we're gonna make it all the way down to third place in the NFC East this year. I think that seems like a not likely to come true prediction at this point.
So I was thinking about this yesterday when I was watching the games, excluding the draft pick part of this, because I know the Eagle fans are feeling good because they could have 3 picks inside the top 12.
But then again, have they watched any of the quarterbacks that are coming out?
Well, I know. So I'm saying, based on just the product they have on the field right now, which team in the NFC East outside of the Cowboys is feeling the best about themselves?
I mean, New York right now, because they won, I guess. I don't know. I mean, but then again, did Barkley get hurt and he's out for at least
they got beat by the Rams 38-3, and the Rams took their starters out in the third quarter of that game.
Yeah. It's I would say the Giants, just because they did have a big win. which is more than what you could say for the rest of the groups. But yeah, I mean, look, I mean, they're going to convince themselves that this is
I did.
salvageable, I'm sure. But yeah, it's pretty much the Cowboys running away from it. It seems like.
So I want to tell you how the Eagles did yesterday, since I was watching that game pretty intently since I was covering the Raiders.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts had 7 completions going into the final 5 minutes of that game, in which they were behind almost from the beginning. The Raiders scored 30 straight points at one point in that game, and Jalen Hurts had 7 completions.
I read somewhere, I think it was from Seth Galina, I could be wrong, that the Raiders ran 88% cover 3 in that game. 88%.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the highest number of percentage of cover 3 I think in 5 years or something, what they said. And Hurts couldn't do anything against it. It's just
Well,
zone. It's just like and
well
they and
that
they and
and
they
I believe the Raiders had 27 pressures in that game. And
that
that
was what I
was
was gonna
with
say.
Lane Johnson playing. That was with Jason Kelsey. Jordan Maitai was playing. I mean, just there's a
That
lot going on there.
that offensive line has fallen off. I mean, like that's what I was just
Yeah.
gonna say is like part of the reason that they could run cover 3 88% of the time is because they were getting home with their front four constantly. Crosby was a nightmare for them,
Mhm.
and really the whole offensive line just doesn't seem up to the task in the way that they have in previous years. So, it's it's crazy because I'm sorry,
No.
it's crazy because they have always they've been like the Cowboys in a lot of way where they always have had very solid offensive line play for years and years and years. Even when they've suffered injuries, they've had good backups. They've had guys that could come in and play. Man, I mean, their starters are struggling. Their backups are struggling. I saw someone saying that there was talk about trading for Andre Dillard. I'm like, who would trade for Andre Dillard at this point? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it's
just it's
rough.
ugly at this
You
point
know
for
the
the
thing,
the
though?
Eagles.
As bad as their offense is, their defense is worse. So,
It's
just to
worse.
give you an
Yeah.
idea of how bad it was yesterday for the Eagles. So, the Raiders, according to the Pro Football Focus, have the worst graded right tackle in the league, the worst rated right guard in the league, the worst rated center in the league, and the second worst rated left guard in the league. Derek Carr never got sacked. He never even got knocked down once yesterday, and he completed 31 of 34 passes. And that's without Darren Waller. That's without Josh Jacobs. It's without their play caller and John Gruden, who resigned a couple of weeks ago. And Derek Carr carved them up. So the Eagles are in a world of hurt. They might be the second best team in the NFC East right now, Landon.
Can we just take a pause real quick and for the sake of all of us in the off season, remember this moment
Yes.
because anytime we get told in the off season that's not going to happen. Okay, well, let me know last time you predicted what KC's record is currently, or that the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line can't get a pass rush going against
The
the
Raiders.
Raiders. I mean, it's any given Sunday, it's like I tweeted out this weekend. Any given Sunday is a season-long endeavor.
Yes.
It's season to
Yes.
season sometimes with these things. So, yeah, I cannot explain what's going on with the Philadelphia defensive line. Like, it's just it has all that they have a ton of talent, and Javon Hargrave for most of the season has been playing out of
Mhm.
his mind, and it just doesn't seem like they're getting the return on investment that they had in previous years.
It's why I'm going to tell people not to panic this offseason when the Eagles are the offseason winners because they have 3 first round picks. That team needs a ton of help, not just at quarterback, but they're really old in some spots as well. Like they're trotting out Ryan Kerrigan and Fletcher Cox, 2 guys that are in their 30s and hoping they get pass rush. Their
Yeah.
safety, their corners are old. Darius Slay is up there. Steven Nelson is up there in age a little bit. I mean, they need a ton of help on top of an offensive line, on top of another receiver. So I know Cowboy fans are a little nervous about next year because what's going to happen when the Eagles and Giants make 6 first round picks in the top 12? It's okay. I promise it'll be okay. All right. I want to talk more about the NFC, Landon. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about DirecTV Stream. DirecTV Stream brings you live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place And the best part, there's no annual contract. So stop waiting and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. That is directv.com. All right, Landon, we're going to look ahead to the Cowboys schedule a little bit in just a second, but I just want to give you some notes from some of the things I saw yesterday from watching the games. First and foremost, I think the NFC has the top 5 teams in the NFL. Like, I think they're all in the NFC, right? Like the Cardinals, I think, are really good. Obviously, the Packers, the Rams, the Bucks, and the Cowboys. Every team in the AFC has at least 2 losses, and it seems like every single one of those teams has one absolutely fatal flaw, if not more, right? Like Baltimore. Baltimore's offensive line is so banged up, and their defense has a ton of injuries. Buffalo, they're so wildly inconsistent, and the Bengals' offensive line is bad. In the NFC, I think because you have so many elite quarterbacks, it makes their floor higher than most, right? Like Tampa Bay is just going to be hard to beat because of Brady. Same way thing with the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. But the NFC is really, really good this year. That's just my biggest takeaway.
Again, for anybody that was trying to push back a little bit on the season to season any given Sunday, who would have figured that? Who would have figured that? I mean, look, heck, just look at the AFC standings right now and who's at the top of it and the names there because they
It's the
certainly
Bengals.
weren't.
I believe the number one seed
Bring it.
right now, the season started, is the Raiders in the AFC West, and then it's the Bengals, and then it's the Titans and Bills in that order.
Would anybody have predicted that? Like, and not that the season's over, but again, like it's a roller coaster of a year, and every year it is. So, yeah, I think that you nailed it. Like the thing that brings stability to these teams, and the thing that's kind of buoying those teams that you mentioned was all of them have great quarterbacks,
Mhm.
and that kind of gives your offense a level of stability that when things are volatile like they are early in a regular season, that's something you can hang your hat on. And I think all these teams that came into this season, hoping to rely on a strong defense or a defense that had in previous years kind of carried them. Some of them are learning hard lessons about the volatility of being able to replicate defense year to year. So it's not terribly surprising that those teams that are at the top of the NFC are the teams that have the best quarterbacks.
So after watching the games on Sunday, is there one team of those 4 outside of the Cowboys that you think is better than the other ones? Because I have my thoughts, which team I think is going to be the best in the playoffs, but what do you think?
Of the NFC teams we're talking about,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they're all going to be tough.
It's all going
I
to be matchups, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it's a matchup based situation, and I think uh, it's all week to week on who's playing. Honestly, I think all 5 of these teams are very close to me.
Mhm.
There's not one team that's like extremely better than the rest. I think that they're all in a very close, tight knit group of talent, across the board. They may be built different ways, but all of them have, strong quarterbacks, strong offenses, and then defenses that are trying to do different things to you, and
Right.
that's where the real kind of differences between these teams are.
Doesn't it feel a little bit like a rock paper scissors thing where the
Yeah.
Cardinals beat the Rams, but the Rams destroyed the Buccaneers, and if the Buccaneers were playing the Packers, I think the Buccaneers would destroy the Packers. You know what I mean? One of those things where it's just I think the playoffs are going to be so much about matchup rather than hey, this is the number 1 seed. I would be shocked if they don't get to the Super Bowl. You know?
Yeah, I think that there's 5 top teams, you're right, and there's not like I mean, one of them is obviously gonna be the top seed, and that's just the way that things get laid out, but I don't know that any of the teams going into the playoffs of those 5 have a distinct advantage over the other, except for the fact that, one of them is gonna get the mechanism of home field advantage throughout the playoffs plus a week bye. So, yeah, I think that's why everyone's kind of in a race to the regular season right now is because uh, I think that we're starting to see that there's a kind of a cream of the crop to the NFC,
Mhm.
and they're all very close together. And playoff seeding is going to have a big influence over who actually finishes the year strong and who kind of gets to the playoff, but maybe struggles because they've got a more difficult task, a more difficult road to
Mhm.
get to the Super Bowl than the other 4 teams.
We keep talking about the top 5 in the NFC. I'm going to be fascinated to see who are the 6 and 7 teams because man, the candidates are not great. Like, we'll see the Saints tonight. We'll see how the Saints look against Seattle. We'll see the Vikings next week against the Cowboys. But like the Seahawks, are they going to be able to survive without Russell Wilson? And even when Russell Wilson comes back, is that defense going to be good enough to win games? What about the 49ers with the
No.
Garoppolo Trey Lance situation, right?
I,
Chicago. I mean, that 6 and 7 seed could be pretty bad in the NFC.
yeah, I mean, just watching San Francisco, I mean, I understand it was a torrential pour, but like I don't know, man. I mean, their quarterback situation is not certain. I think there's arguments to be made for
Yeah.
Garoppolo. You've got a rookie quarterback who's been playing okay, but he's also been injured.
Mhm.
And I think that that's kind of been the MO for that team in general. I don't know. I mean, I think San Francisco is one of these teams that, to me, uh, I can't see it. Like, I like they have a really good coach, obviously one of the best in X's and O's in football, but they just don't have any receiving talent outside of
You see it in
Debo
flashes,
Samuels.
right? It seems like
Yeah,
there's certain drives where they look really unstoppable, and then it's like, okay, we used up our 15 plays. Now what?
yeah,
You know?
exactly, and that's the problem is that they have just a very limited ceiling. If Kyle Shanahan trickery and wizardry doesn't work, then what's their backup? They don't necessarily
Yeah.
have the talent to make plays on the field when you need them on the offensive side of the ball right now. So it's Kittle doesn't look like the same guy whenever he does play. And Debo Samuel is still Debo Samuel, but they need kind of another guy on the other
Yep.
side of it. And Brandon Ayuk either is just not playing well or not being deployed correctly. However you want to make that argument, they're not getting what they expected out of him. So yeah, it's a solid run game, and that's what they've been
Yep.
trying to hang their hat on, and that's not quite enough to kind of compete with the rest of these 4 or 5 teams that we've been talking about.
All right, let's take one more quick break before we look ahead to the Cowboys schedule. I wanted to tell you guys about Get Upside. Our listeners are making up to 25 cents per gallon for every gallon of gas every single time they fill up. Just download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. Use promo code Touchdown and get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or e-gift card. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code Touchdown to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. That is promo code Touchdown. Also, want to tell you guys about Built Bar. You guys know Built Bar. It's the best tasting protein bar out there. It's hard to even explain it. Real chocolate, amazing flavors. It's just a great combination of low calories, high protein, and low sugar with no crazy additives. Best of all, they taste fantastic. Go to builtbar.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next box at builtbar.com. All right, Landon, I went ahead and looked at the odds for the Cowboys for the rest of the season in each individual game. And there's only one game in which they are not favored going forward, and that's against the Chiefs in Kansas City. Now, that could change a little bit depending on where the Chiefs are sitting at. But
Yeah.
just to read the kind of the upcoming schedule, they got Minnesota this week on Sunday Night Football, and then it's home against the Broncos, who are just in awful shape right now. Home against the Falcons, who almost completely falconed yesterday after being up 13 points in the fourth quarter. You've got the Chiefs, who are a mess, the Raiders on Thanksgiving, the Saints in New Orleans, and then oh man, this December stretch is so much fun. At Washington, at the Giants, home against Washington, home against the Cardinals, at the Eagles. So, kind of looking ahead to the schedule, where do you think the Cowboys are going to finish?
I mean, the games that give me pause right now, just kind of looking at them, I think this Minnesota game is
I
you got to
agree.
be careful. That
Yes.
that one that one is a little bit concerning. That's just the matchup wise, playing at Minnesota on a
Mhm.
Sunday night, coming off a bye. Minnesota's also got the bye, so that's going to be a different one. We'll talk about that game all week. Denver doesn't obviously give me a lot of fear.
Especially if
Y-
Von Miller's not playing, which he might
yeah,
not be depending on his ankle.
Yeah, and we got to we just got to take care of business against the Denvers and the Falcons, like
Yep.
of the world. Like these are the folks that we have to find a way
Two
to get
home
to get
games,
to
both
get to get those wins. You know what I'm
both
saying?
1 o'clock p.m. start or Eastern time starts, or early kickoffs, but
But yeah, I mean, they gotta find a way to. Those are games that they should win, and they need to win the games they should.
Yeah.
Kansas City is obviously, a gonna be a heck of a game. I mean, it's just for Cowboys fans who maybe aren't as familiar with Kansas City. I don't know how you're not, but uh, Arrowhead Stadium is just one of the best, atmospheres in football,
Bonkers
and that
there.
the
Yeah.
fandom is just absolutely nuts.
And the Chiefs
And
could
yeah,
really need that game. Like
yeah, absolutely.
the Chiefs might have to go, they might only be able to lose 2 or 3 more games the rest of the season. So they might really need that one.
Yeah, people forget the history between these two teams, but they're basically brother sister teams. I mean, the
Yep.
owner of the Chiefs lives basically across the street from Jerry Jones in Dallas.
Mhm.
They have the Battle of Preston Road because they both live on Preston Road in Highland Park in Dallas, and and that Kansas City obviously used to be the Dallas Texans, so there's lots of history there. Look, they're gonna have Mahomes. That's all you need to know, and that's gonna make it a ball game no matter what. And in this, we talk about all the time, having a quarterback makes all the difference. And Mahomes is, super quarterback right now. Honestly, I think that's an incredible matchup that is going to have incredible storylines all week. But I think almost as interesting at this point, and you can talk to me about it, is that Thanksgiving game now
Mm.
against the Las Vegas Raiders. Vegas looks like a much better football team than a lot of people anticipated, and especially now in the face of John Gruden being let go and them changing. I think first of all, you and I should just take a moment to talk about how well deserved Rich Bisaccia's
Yes. Yep.
elevation to head coach is. The guy is a
Mhm.
guru, a head coach. He's who coaches go to about coaching. So kudos to the Raiders making the right choice there. But let's just talk about them real quick because I feel
Sure.
like this is a team that I mean, you said I think they're number one seed in the AFC right now.
Mhm.
Their offense is playing lights out. They're clearly not going to have any points moving. Not going to have any problems scoring points or moving the football. It's was kind of a similar situation to Dallas where their defense was a very questionable entity going into the
Mhm.
year, but they've played pretty well considering. So give us a little bit of the inside scoop with
Yeah,
Vegas.
that was really going to be interesting because there's so much familiarity on both sides, right? Like the defensive coordinator there is Gus Bradley, who Dan Quinn worked with in Seattle, right? And they
Yeah.
both run similar schemes. Now, I know the Raiders run more cover three than what Dallas does, but a lot of the concepts are similar, right? Their defensive line coach is Rod Marinelli, who has Yannick Ngakoue and Max Crosby playing some of the best football of their careers. They have Rich Bisaccia, who obviously coached for the Cowboys for a long time. So it's just some interesting matchups and some interesting faces on each side of the ball. But I'll be honest, the Raiders aren't a good matchup for the Cowboys. Let me rephrase it: the Cowboys aren't a good matchup for the Raiders because the Raiders can really get run on, and unless you're scoring a bunch of points on offense, um, I don't know. I think Dallas matches up well with that team, especially on a short week. I'll be honest, Landon. The game that scares me the most is this next one, and we're going to talk
Yeah.
about it all week. But Minnesota has the unique ability to stay balanced on offense, but also hit shots in the passing game. And we've kind of talked about this for a while. Like if a team can stick with their rushing attack against Dallas, they could have a lot of success. Now, Minnesota's defense, I think you can get, especially with Patrick Peterson being out, but they're probably the one team on the schedule that's the most well balanced. And because that game is in Minnesota, I think it's going to be tricky. But the schedule, for the most part, is pretty soft the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that gives me a little bit of hope there, and not look, I mean, we're going to be favored to win the Minnesota game. Like, it's not that
We
we
are. Yeah,
don't.
the
It's not like we
Cowboys
don't
are.
have a chance. It's just that we need to. It's going to be a tough game.
Oh,
Like,
it's
we
going to be a
shouldn't
tough game, of
struggle.
course.
I think the thing that gives me a lot of hope there is, I think the Cowboys are going to have lots of opportunity to spread this team out and throw the football over the yard against that secondary. It's just not
Yep.
very good. The cornerbacks themselves obviously are not great, especially like you said with Peterson out. Uh, Marcus, do you happen to know who the starting free safety is for the Minnesota Vikings?
I do. It's Xavier Woods, an old pal of ours.
And I feel like we may have some of the book on Xavier Woods.
Do you know who
Yeah,
their edge
Harris.
rusher is that has the most sacks?
It's
It's
Everson
another pal.
Griffith, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Everson Griffin found the fountain of youth that I guess was not in
Wasn't
Mike
that
Nolan's back
Dallas?
pocket. Yeah, maybe a little bit of a revenge game for him. Look, I think despite what you were talking about on offense, and you're not wrong at all. That offense could potentially give Cowboys trouble. I think the good news is for the Cowboys, they match up really well against the Minnesota defense, especially throwing the football. And I think the Cowboys should be able to kind of put points up early. And if that's the case, I do like this team putting the Vikings into one-dimensional mode and then coming after Kirk Cousins, because I think that's where they will have a lot of success if they can find a way to get them out of that balance mode. What you worry about are teams that can play balanced football and that could stop the pass, because those guys, that you can't force them off their spot. You can't force them to play one-dimensional football, and then they can just kind of eat you up. And the Vikings have half of that equation,
They do.
but not the other half. So
Their number
that's a
one
good.
corner right now is another old friend of ours, Rashad Breeland, who we know from his
Yeah.
days in Washington. In his prime, he couldn't stop the Cowboys' best receivers. So I don't know at the age of 30, whatever he is now, if he's going to have a lot of luck against Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and maybe Michael Gallup. We'll
And
see.
maybe Michael Gallup too. That's the thing, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be an interesting game to say the least.
Yeah. Let's just hope Dak Prescott is healthy enough to play. It sounds like we're trending in that direction. We'll obviously get some updates as the week goes on. I don't believe he's scheduled to practice on Monday. The Cowboys do have another practice on Wednesday. We'll keep you guys updated. So make sure you're downloading the Locked On Cowboys podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to be back on Tuesday with some questions from you guys on Twitter. We've got a crossover show later this week with Luke, who you guys know from Locked On NFL. That'll be a lot of fun. Busy week here on the show. So make sure you guys are tuning in. For Landon, for me, we will see you guys next time.